What would you do if, at 4:10 p.m., you were on your way to pick up your child, and by 4:18 she was gone? At that hour, the city breathes routine. Schoolyards exhale children, guards rattle keys, parents text quick promises. 2 minutes, I'm outside. Alina walked fast, shoulder tense against wind, phone nagging about a call she owed her boss. In her pocket was a small bottle of water for Kira, 7 years old and always thirsty after dance. At 4:11, she saw the arch. At 4:14, a stream of boys burst out, backpacks thudding ribs, laughter ricocheting. Kira usually followed, braid messy, pink jacket scuffed at the elbows. At 4:16, Alina typed, "We're leaving now," and watched the checkmark turn blue. At 4:18, the courtyard was a drained stage, a forgotten notebook on a bench, wrappers fluttering like lost thoughts. No Kira. The guard lifted a shoulder. Everyone's gone. In the cloakroom, only other people's scarves. Her daughter's bag wasn't there. Her daughter wasn't there. 7 a.m. had felt normal. Victor, factory badge clipped crooked, left without breakfast. The door coughing on its hinges. He'd been sleeping in the spare room. 2 parallel lives pretending to be one address. Alina stirred oatmeal, one eye on Kira's socks, the other on a message from Romaine. "Don't call today. Tonight we talk." That talk had been postponed for weeks. Money, the lease, the child caught between quiet fury and quiet need. A roof you know is leaking, but you wait for rain before you fix it. The school had a password system, a word only trusted adults knew, meant to hold a thin line against strangers. It had lived in a policy document, not in anyone's mouth. In the parent chat, emojis drowned checklists. Kira's schedule said dance, next wing. The guard didn't look. Alina arrived 5 minutes late. Those 5 minutes would multiply in memory until they felt like hours. There's a fluorescent fatigue to missing child rooms. Too bright and somehow dim. Forms, questions with obvious answers. A clock that sounds louder than it should. She repeated the facts until the syllables became cold stones in her mouth. Time, gate, pink jacket, dance wing, unseen exit. The parent chat offered advice that wasn't advice. Kids wander, check her best friend. Alina paced the empty hallway where the last footsteps had faded and touched everything Kira might have touched, as if fingerprints could hold warmth. The guard remembered a woman in a yellow coat with a firm voice. The entrance camera blinked a red lie. The hard drive had been dead for months. Someone would fix it soon. Alina learned a new kind of silence, the one between refreshes when no message appears. Streetlights came on. Her hands shook but felt professional about it, like hands obeying a manual the heart hadn't read. Alina posted Kira's photo. Summer grin, ice cream smear, wild bangs. The picture jumped between groups faster than flyers ever could. Volunteers messaged with maps and calm instructions. Strangers offered theories and blame. Screenshots of Alina's private texts leaked. The wrong kind of helping. Lover over child, the caption sneered. The algorithm prefers outrage to geography. It can't hold a perimeter or search a hedge, but it can multiply shame. In the kitchen, Alina turned the phone face down and whispered to no one, "Take it, just give me her back." Outside, flashlights lit hedgerows, thermoses hissed. A cheap smartphone with parental control had last pinged at 4:09 beside the dance wing, then nothing. The grocery on the corner kept a camera that actually recorded, but tape belonged to procedures, and procedures moved like winter molasses. The word queue gained a colder meaning. Volunteers found an angle from a car wash. Concrete, a sliver of curb, 2 brief lives, a child in pink, a woman in mustard. The woman bent, said something. Kira's shoulders loosened a little, trust practiced by countless pickups. They moved to the street. A gray sedan slid in, front plate missing like a shrug. A door opened, small legs climbed, the woman walked away. No struggle, no drama, just a change of hands. Parents admitted they'd received a call that afternoon. Alina's voice, her cadence, her casual hurry. "Pick up Kira, I'm late." It wasn't her. Voice cloning is cheap now. A line of code can mimic care convincingly enough to unlock a child's belief. That's all it needed to do. Victor arrived without accusation in his posture, but with it in his pupils. He had a time-stamped shift card and the tired stillness of men who carry a lot with few words. Their apartment had become a practical museum. Separate cups, separate shelves, invisible tape down the middle of the bed they no longer shared. Alina stood in the doorway and felt the room's tilt. Love gone dull, trust gone brittle, attention sliced into fragments between child, work, and a private stupidity named Romaine. The anonymous channel had already reached Victor's phone. He didn't shout. He looked like someone whose breath weighed more than his chest could carry. There are arguments you don't have because the air is too expensive. Her name was Olga, 52, a paper bag of medications rationed to last the month, rent overdue. In a nanny for an hour chat, a task appeared. Pick up a girl, hand her to her father near the park, quick cash. A sample note arrived. "I trust Aunt Olia," printed, signature as believable as a stamp. The coat she owned that didn't shame her was mustard. Confidence is a credential. She walked with it. The guard, busy with bored parents, nodded her through. Kira took the offered hand because children are trained to be brave in small ways. At the curb, the gray car, a door, the exchange. Olga's pocket held 5,000 in rescued breath. That night she scrolled and saw Kira's face under the word missing. She switched off the phone and cried like someone learning the shape of moral injury. In the morning she sold her earrings to return the money to the world that had just burned her. The gray sedan's route ended at new towers by the ring road, their windows still smelling of fresh possibility. Inside, a generic apartment, temporary art, unused kettle, a view that meant nothing. A man in a pressed shirt cut a hair's breadth of Kira's braid and slid it into an envelope. A brush, a mug, another small theft labeled consent on a pre-printed form. He told the child a sentence adults think works. "It's a game, it's for mom, it's nothing at all." Somewhere down the corridor, a lift chimed. A cheerful note inside a quiet wrong. That evening, an email found Alina. If she wanted her daughter, she would stay silent about Romaine. She had ruined a family. Now her own would feel ruin. Attached, Kira on a gray sofa, a stuffed rabbit under her arm, the apartment's white light as careless as noon. Grief needs a task. Volunteers gave it one. Lara, who treated chat rooms like neighborhoods, prodded the nanny broker with questions and delay. The pattern repeated. Fake notes, easy instructions, a ready wallet. Not a father, a pipeline. Another team photographed the gray sedan's VIN when it idled at a late-night kiosk. Numbers became a breadcrumb, a security firm, the business center they serviced, the floor where Romaine's wife moved behind glass doors under perfect lighting. The firm spoke in tidy phrases about safe transfers, a sentence that fatigued the language. At 3:20 a.m., a volunteer detective sent an address with the kind of brevity that meant everything else had already been said in legwork. By 3:40, people who had work in the morning stood under a dark balcony and passed each other quiet courage. Sometimes doors open like they've been waiting to. 4:05, and the handle yielded under a tired guard's palm. He didn't run, he didn't grandstand. He stepped aside because the world had arrived with witnesses. On a couch, a sleeping child who'd carried the day as far as a 7-year-old can carry anything. On a table, folder tabs whispering DNA, a pen still uncapped, a coffee ring. Kira woke to her name and smiled in relief. Reflex, Mom, The room exhaled the iron smell of ended dread. The guard found words about a woman with money who wanted to isolate the child from online harassment. Wealth often calls itself protection while moving children like parcels. Morning sites filed bland headlines about a family dispute. Kidnapping is a word that stains. No one wanted it on their breakfast. By noon, Olga had walked into a station with the same mustard coat and placed money on a desk that wasn't built for absolution. A pawn slip trembled between her fingers. "I thought I was helping," she said, and nobody argued. Malice has a different posture. Outside, she met Alina. Meeting is a larger verb than it seems. Two lives cross and hand each other something unnameable. "I'm not bad," Olga managed. "I was foolish." Alina pulled her into a hug, a human gesture against a mechanized harm. Poverty doesn't have a scent, not really, but helplessness does. Sterile rooms, stale air, state paper. Romain sat where professionals sit, braided by counsel and deniability. He wrote messages about concern and distance and the ways a man can be not quite responsible. His wife uploaded a polished statement about shielding a child from online cruelty, and the comments applauded the rhetoric that came dressed as care. Yesterday's sympathies swiveled easily. The internet practices whiplash like sport. In the stairwell, neighbors staged small trials with big eyebrows. Alina learned which sentences to ignore and which to place like stones in a river to cross later. That night, she read Kira a favorite book and altered its last page. The rabbit didn't merely endure, it learned its teeth. There were apologies in corridors and printouts taped beside doors. Budget lines became locks and lenses. A system that had lived on paper learned to exist in metal and light. Photos of trusted adults, a rotating word whispered not into chats but into ears. Access logs that actually logged. Parents complained about forms because forms are easy to hate. The guard, who had shrugged at routine, resigned quietly and took his good keys with him. A vice principal posted about human trust. Emojis bloomed underneath. Trust does not grow in comment sections. What remains when the child is home? Thermoses washed, headlamps recharged. A whiteboard wiped clean of circles and arrows as if fear can be erased like ink. Lara folded maps and joked about developing a lifelong suspicion of mustard textiles. They expected no thanks. The next alert would interrupt someone's dinner tomorrow. Alina brought cookies that crumbled too easily and stayed anyway, because sitting among people who run toward problems changes your blood. Legal language prefers neutral weather. The young guard received a suspended sentence dressed in phrases about exceeding roles. The broker earned a harder noun. The woman with money moved between house and court, and back again with a bracelet that beeped sometimes and a lawyer who never did. A judge noted the limited social danger. Social danger is always limited until it visits your kitchen. Romain left for a while and then reappeared with a reshaped narrative. His wife launched a foundation with a name that sounded like a bath product and said "we" a lot. The camera loved her. Cameras often do. Victor packed like a careful man. Kettles, shirts, a shoebox of photos where Kira still wore baby teeth, and paper crowns. At the threshold, he told Alina the sentence he had rehearsed many nights. "You're not guilty. I just couldn't." He left the keys on the windowsill where the afternoon light made them gentle and the flat exhaled. Sometimes the most honest gift is departure. The psychologist's office held a bowl of smooth stones and crayons sharpened to optimism. Kira drew a house with 2 doors and colored one bright, one dark. "Why 2? So no one comes in unless we want them," she said, practical as a locksmith. They made a new family password that sounded like nonsense to anyone else and powerful to them. Alina deleted the messenger threads that had invited strangers into her days, changed numbers, bought the school a humming little hard drive with her own money. Ridiculous and absolutely right. If not her, then who? Not a monster under a bridge. A system of conveniences. How easy to buy a confident tone, a coat that looks like authority, a driver who doesn't ask, a door that doesn't creak. How fragile the scaffolding around children. Underfunded gates, sleepy protocols. Adults trusting call quality more than face quality. Poverty pressed Olga's choices into dangerous shapes. Social media made private pain into content and then scolded the subject for bleeding. The affair mattered, yes, but mostly as leverage. Weakness repurposed as tool. Blame is a lazy map. The route here was longer. A month later, the dance studio smelled of resin and rain boots. Alina waited at the door, palms warm around a thermos lid. They said the password together like a joke that belonged to them. Olga found work in another school cafeteria and learned the names of children who liked extra soup. Victor sent voice notes with awkward pauses that meant care. Romain wrote long letters that never found eyes. The woman with money cut ribbons. Alina started spending 2 evenings a month at the volunteer hub, taping flyers, logging sightings, handing tea to strangers whose hands shook. Debt to helpers can't be paid back, only forward. At 4:10, routine returned to the gate, not as complacency but as practice. A sign read, "Password required," in letters that were finally real. Photos of trusted faces curled slightly under dry air. Cameras blinked and kept blinking. The hard drive hummed like a small, steady animal. Alina stood and knew there is no such thing as safety, only people who refuse to look away. At 4:14, Kira appeared, braid already loosening, pink jacket swinging. She waved. Alina waved back. Not a fairy tale ending, just a life moved back into its place by many hands. Sometimes that is enough, sometimes it isn't. Today, it was.